Hi, everyone. Well, a warm thanks to all of you for inviting me to come. Really appreciate the good free food in these tough times.
But we're in the basement.
As well as the longtime support of Echoing Green. I'm here actually because Echoing Green means a lot to me, and I think that's probably true of almost anybody who has ever received Echoing Green support. You know, I was not the typical profile when it comes to an Echoing Green Fellowship. In 1995, when I applied, I was a recent law school graduate, perhaps not unusual amongst their applicants. I was working as a civil rights attorney in a small DC-based firm, and I was applying to do an undercover investigation on the Russian mafia's involvement in trafficking women for forced prostitution. I had no prior experience as an undercover investigator. My fiscal sponsor was the Marine Mammal Fund, and I had virtually no financial support. Now, why, you wonder, after 5 months of due diligence, would Echoing Green have decided that I was worth an investment? You know, the story, we need to step back a moment further. I was working, as I mentioned, as a civil rights attorney, and a friend of a friend's approached me and he said, listen, I've been investigating the trade in Siberian tiger pelts in the Russian Far East. I'm very focused on endangered species and organized criminal involvement in the trade in endangered species. And I've been filming these meetings with hidden cameras. And in a most recent meeting in Vladivostok in Siberia, they offered to sell me women. This was 1995, and I was just absolutely flabbergasted. I was interested in tigers, not women, but they seemed to be in some way correlated in this mafia man's mind. And he said, I don't have the time to raise the funds or figure out how we might do an investigation on the trade in women, but from a little initial perusal, it appears that it's a booming business, and we ought to think about it. He had approached me because he knew I had a background in working at a global level in human rights issues, a legal background, and really because he didn't know who else to go to. And I started researching this after hours, and 2 weeks later, rocked up at his office and said, okay, I've resigned my job as an attorney, and you know, let's go. He said, I can't pay you. I mean, what are you talking about? I said, I know you can't, but I can wait some tables if need be, and I think this is going to be a lot more interesting, with all due respect to the attorneys in the room, than what I have been doing. So let's give it a try. So we formed a dummy company called International Liaisons, specializing in foreign models, escorts, and entertainers. I created with a friend some business cards and some brochures. They were mauve, on mauve stationery. And we prepared to head to Russia, where we connected quite quickly with a woman who was ostensibly serving as our translator, but who was in fact connected to both the mail-order bribe businesses and to some criminal syndicates that were interested in exporting women to the United States. We were posing as buyers interested in importing women into the United States. So this was the very beginning of our investigation, which actually became transcontinental, which resulted in a film called Bought and Sold, an undercover investigative documentary on the international trade in women. And it was, in fact, in Siberia that I received the news that the Echoing Green Foundation was my first and only supporter. But they saw something, and I think it was a fair bet. Maybe not a safe bet, but a fair bet, and one that paid off in very significant ways when it comes to that issue. Moving from, and I'll say a few more things about Echoing Green as I move on, because it isn't really just the funding, it's also the peers that you establish. I would say it's 4 things that really make a difference when it comes to Echoing Green. First of all, it's the financial support. Secondly, it's the faith or the confidence. I mean, as an early angel investor, many people that get that initial support from Echoing Green have not had the financial support before. They haven't had the blue chip credibility that Echoing Green brings, and that's not because the people they're investing in are demonstrated in their success. It's because the people they do invest in turn out to be highly successful. So you become automatically associated with some pretty prestigious company, myself excluded. And then the peers, as I mentioned, you you find yourself with a group of people to whom you can relate. We may be doing very different things, but we have some similar characteristics in common, and you hear about this a lot if you follow the so-called social enterprise field. You know, fiercely independent, imaginative, creative, stubborn, a lot of stick-to-itiveness, very resourceful, and people who don't tend to play by the rules. At the same time, people who are smart, I think, and in general highly strategic when it comes to how to leverage some real impact with a relatively modest investment. And then finally, beyond the money, the peers, and the faith, I think it's the visibility that it offers. And you know, events like this are really important, I think, for many Equity Green Fellows as an opportunity to connect to resources of all kinds. Just to kind of continue the narrative, because the Global Survival Network was just 3 short years in in what's feeling like a long lifetime as my hair grays. I through that got very interested in what I started calling video advocacy. I mean, how was it that this problem, trafficking in women, had become evident and documented for quite a number of years, but had never really made its way onto the map, had never really instigated a global response in the way that our work was able to do in close partnership with a broad range of others. And I really think it was because of how compelling that video was, and also, frankly, because I think we were talking about Caucasian women coming from an area of strategic interest to the United States. The trade in women out of Asia, for example, had been documented in the past and had not generated as much interest. Didn't have the undercover material, but still, I do think there was a racial dimension to the reaction we got. So I started thinking about how you can make a difference with video after that kind of video advocacy grand slam, and was then invited to become the director of Witness, which is an organization founded by musician and advocate Peter Gabriel, originally with Genesis, that focuses on donating video cameras to human rights groups and helping them use video and advocacy campaigns. And I grew that organization and ran that organization for 10 years until very recently. Worked in over 40 countries around the world, worked on issues ranging from slavery in Brazil to abuses inside juvenile facilities here in the United States to child soldiers in the Congo, all focused on how to train and empower and enable human rights advocates to document the abuses they saw around them and to propose solutions in visually compelling ways. And not just working with television or the media, but thinking about how you can make a difference, particularly through face-to-face convenings with key decision makers, whether it's a minister of health in Paraguay, that's my note. I haven't even gotten to one guy. Okay, so fast forward. Suddenly, saw Al Gore's slideshow as it was being filmed, in fact, for Inconvenient Truth at a TED conference. Absolutely flabbergasted. One of the many people who I think was bought into some of the misinformation campaigns swirling around, and still to some extent, about whether or not global warming is in fact documented reality and caused by human business. I announced my departure, and I'm now in my 3rd social enterprise startup, which is the One Sky campaign, which is a very highly collaborative national campaign here in the U.S. dedicated to delivering bold federal policy to tackle climate change and deliver a clean energy economy.